Oh, welcome to another episode of The Growth Compass. Shout out to our sponsors, senders. If you want to email deliverability correctly, there's a link. But without them, it would not be possible to interview awesome people doing awesome things like Hiro. Welcome.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we were just chatting about it before the start of the episode, but I do think I was looking into anything that I could find about First Mate and things like this. Um, I think you have a really interesting story about how you got to where you're at and what it is you guys do and how you go about describing that to the world. And so, just learning more about from your perspective the journey that it's been and the kinds of people you work with, the kinds of projects, and the why. It's all stuff that I got questions about, and luckily, I get to ask you these questions. So, for anyone that doesn't know yet, if you could give a brief introduction of who you are and what you're building.
Certainly. So my name is Hiro. I am the co-founder CEO of FirstMate Technologies. FirstMate is a software development agency that specializes in working with startups. So we're based in Asia. At this time, we're about 34 engineers, AI engineers, software engineers. And, when startups in places like San Francisco or New York, when they need help with AI engineering or software engineering, they give us a call and we help out with whatever they need help with. We help out with any projects that they need help with.
So, is this your first company?
Uh, Interesting question. Technically not. So just to go into how this company got formed.
Okay.
Originally, we were an EdTech company. My co-founder and I started a company in the EdTech space. It was like a language learning app, so Duolingo, but better with AI kind of thing. It was a cool idea. We were able to build the tech. It was like this really nifty thing, but ultimately it didn't really work out. And but we said, look, we had raised $500,000 to build that app, but we had the cash in the bank. We had assembled an amazing team, and we really liked working with that team. So rather than disassembling the company, we kept the company as is, and we pivoted into becoming what we are today, which is this trusted technical partner for startups that are building cool things out there. So to answer your question directly, it is still our first company, but we went through this massive transformation. So it almost feels like it's our second company.
So then, could you summarize a little bit about what your life was leading up to the decision to start your own company? And that can be any professional experiences, any schooling, anything that led to the decision of you being like, this is entrepreneurship is what I want.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Japan. I was born and raised in Tokyo. Then when I was 19, I came to the US to attend college. I studied computer science at Harvard. After that, I moved to San Francisco to work at a company called Asana. And that was a startup. When I joined, it was about 200 people, and when I left, it was about 1,500 people. So over the course of the 5 years I was there, the company went from private to public. It grew from 200 people to 1,500 people, and I was an engineer, and just like being able to build something that grew so quickly and was making everyone's lives so much better was a really inspiring experience. And I felt, look, being part of the startup was really cool. Now I want to be, instead of doing the 200 to 1500, I wanted to experience the 0 to 1. So I think that was the motivation of me wanting to start a company.
So something I can't help myself but ask, when you're working at Asana, do you use Asana to also manage?
100%. 100%. So, FirstMate, we meet once a month on our office day, but other than that, we are a remote company. And my co-founder and I, we both used to work at Asana. And as a remote company, it's really important for us to be aligned, right? And for that, we do two things. One, we get on a call every day and we speak for 1 hour. It's been a huge time investment, but we think it's totally worth it. And then two, we use Asana, and that really helps the team stay aligned and make sure we're on the same page.
But then also at Asana, you also use the technology that you were building.
Oh, internally? Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, okay.
Everything ran, yeah, ran on Asana and Asana,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
100%.
Okay. So, okay, so that's really cool. So then one of the coolest questions that I love to hear people's perspective on is, out of your experience at school, out of your experience at Asana and working and things like that, when you when you came into starting the EdTech company, which is what it was first, what was, let's say two main things that stand out to you, two of the biggest things that impacted you from your experience about how you chose to start building the EdTech company that ended up being FirstMate.
Um, Kind of like two experiences that led to me building the company.
Yeah,
Am I getting the
experiences,
correct?
lessons, skills, just something from, like kind of saying like, okay, this is the point where like I went into entrepreneurship and this was everything beforehand. What in this area of your life impacted how you decided to build your company?
Yeah, yeah. I think the first thing is my passion in the problem that we were trying to solve. This might be a bit of a cliche, but they say that the word passion I think it comes from the Latin passio, which means suffering. And for me, that suffering was coming to the US. And because I didn't speak any English when I first came to the US, right? I only
Wow.
spoke Japanese. It's been more than a decade, so now I've overcome that language barrier, let's say. But in the beginning, it was really tough just coming to the US and speaking very little English and not being able to express myself in the way that I could in my native tongue. And when AI came along, and I was thinking, oh, maybe if we leverage this technology effectively, we can make things better for the next generation. Where um, when another international student comes to the US, maybe they don't have to struggle as much anymore, thanks to AI and thanks to these new tools that we had. So I think, it was that experience of suffering coming to the US and that led to the passion in the topic that really led me to, that was motivated me to start the company. So that's the first thing.
Wow.
And I think secondly, I had a really good co-founder that it was too good of an opportunity to let go. So my co-founder, his name is Mark. He was my college buddy, and he was my coworker at Asana, and also my best man at my wedding, right? And I knew that,
That's so beautiful.
yeah, yeah. So I knew that, and I knew that he was kind of itching to start a new thing, and sorry, one thing I left out in my timeline is that after Asana, I went to Harvard Business School. So I went to attended business school for 2 years, and I was taking a class on building a startup, and I was allowed to bring in a guest to work on a class project with me, which was to build a startup from scratch. And I decided to bring along my Mark, who at the time had a job, but I knew that he was itching to start something, and I was like, look, like I kind of want to start this thing in the language space. Mark, who is like this excellent person, we have a lot of we have a long history of working together and knowing him, and like both of us wanted to start a company at the same time. Like that's just stars align opportunities that I could not miss.
Yeah. Well, this is all like, we got a lot of momentum with this story here. I think you're doing a great job setting this up. So those are two really beautiful pieces that you chose to talk about. So thank you. And something that I think is a unique opportunity in this conversation is that not a lot of people have the opportunity. I'm sure you weren't super grateful for it while you were going through it, but for me, as far as telling your story and like getting to hear it and other people, is the experience of a genuine like large scale pivot that turns out to be successful. And I think that's really important for people to hear. It teaches you a lot about what it means to start, run a business, make decisions, things like this. So then, now that we have Mark, we got the best man thing, you guys got the chemistry, we got this going. So you guys go into this language space. You have the passion based on your experience, which it's also awesome. So you go into you jump into this experience. How long? Let's just say the first one. How long was it between when you started the company and when you pivoted?
A year.
Oh, okay. So an entire year. So if you can, how in whatever direction you want to go with it, if you could lay out what that year was like as far as getting the first customers, the first experiences, the feelings that maybe it was working, and then when it started to not work, and then finally the decision to pivot, and then we can get into that. But yeah, just lay out that first year.
Yeah. Um, so again, I had this idea of, making things easier for the next generation of people coming to the US using the power of AI. And concretely, the product was a Zoom plugin or a Google Meet plugin that would join your business calls, and it would monitor how you are speaking English. It would monitor your pronunciation, your grammar, your vocabulary, and at the end of the call, it would send you a report listing the things that you could be improving on. And that was the idea. And we pitched it we did two things simultaneously. One, we pitched it to investors, and then two, we started looking for clients. We were trying to build this as a B2B app, and we were successful on both fronts. So we were able to secure $500,000 in pre-seed funding from VCs in the US. And then also we were able to secure 4 or 5 trial contracts with companies. And that got us really motivated, right? Like, okay, the investors believe that this could work, and hey, we have trial contracts. What we didn't see was that these companies that signed these trial contracts, they had no intention of actually turning this into a real engagement. This was back in 2023. This was just when GPT-4 came out. And as it turns out, these people were just curious what AI can do. And they wanted to, look at this shiny thing. And, what we thought was a strong signal for market demand just ended up being a reflection of people's excitement about AI overall and their curiosity rather than a real business pain that we were solving or that we were solving.
Interesting.
Yeah, so after a few months, we realized that those trial contracts weren't turning into real contracts, and that's when we started thinking, oh, maybe this isn't working. And when you're going through a pivot, the hardest thing about the pivot isn't the pivot itself. I think it's the final month leading up to the pivot where that this thing is likely not going to work out, and you're like few weeks away from giving up, but you're kind of just dragging along purely based on momentum. I think that was the toughest time because I was still doing that 1 hour call with my co-founder every day, right? So every morning we would talk about how to improve the product, how do we turn around the business, but at the bottom of the heart, we kind of know that it's not going to work out. So like that was the most difficult part of this transition.
Yeah, I think something that isn't talked about. Well, I guess it has been, at least in my sphere of whatever I can consume. It's talked about more so in the last few years, but something that doesn't get as much press as the people that are successful, build all this stuff, are the people that choose when to quit, when they should quit. Because something that I think is very common in entrepreneurship is just like keep going, keep pushing, you'll figure it out, blah blah blah. But part of that figuring it out, like I think, is what you did. You guys did not give up. You guys did not quit. You just stopped working on a particular problem, but found the fit for your product in a different way. And I think it's really useful, at least for me, to look at pivots that way. It's not like, okay, we're like, we failed and then, we had to pivot and we're successful. It's more so like, what's the grand idea here? We're building a business, and it's like, well, we're pushed forward in this one direction with this one idea, gathered enough data to see that we needed to pivot. So how long has it been since you guys decided to do that pivot?
Uh, well, it's been about 2 years. After we decided that we need to pivot, we spent an entire month brainstorming new ideas for our next product, our next big thing. And that was also a pretty gruesome process too, where, we were kind of just staring into the whiteboard day after
Yeah.
day, brainstorming ideas, shooting them down. And we realized that, you know, and when you're doing that, you're creating problems that don't really exist in the world. And that was also a painful process. And at the end, we said, look, like let's for now, why don't we just try out taking on contract engineering work? That's how it started, right? Because we didn't have a product idea, but we did have a rock star engineering team. And also, conveniently, we were based in Asia, where things tend to be quite a bit cheaper than the US. And we knew a lot of US startups that needed help in engineering. So
Yeah.
we said, look, let's just bring some revenue through the door one way or another. And that's how we started this line of work.
So that's actually something. So I guess because I really do want to understand how that's gone for you, gaining those clients and growing the agency side of the business. But one thing that I guess we did not cover yet is the concept of hiring. If you guys went through a year and ultimately pivoted and all of that, but were able to acquire this rock star team and company, like how did you approach hiring? How were you able to find such talent and congruency and build a culture and all of that stuff?
I think it's twofold. It's the network and the dream. So as for the network, my co-founder Mark, has lived in. He's based in the Philippines, and he's just really, really deeply embedded in the ecosystem there. So he knows who to tap into, where to go to find the best engineers. So that network really helped. And then also it's the dream, right? Like, hey, we raised a bunch of money. We're changing the world with AI. Come join us to change the world with us. I think that pitch was really helpful as we assembled the initial team.
But what was it anything about like just because again these questions come from a lot of conversations on this podcast have resulted in people reflecting on hiring decisions that they've made that have not worked out necessarily, and that it's something that it's really hard to teach, and something that you have to experience and you get better at over time. So I'm curious if there's any way that you like upon reflection, any way that you to approach hiring that could be helpful for somebody else that's going to hire and not make similar mistakes.
Um, we've had hires that ended up not being a great fit with us. And when you reflect on each one of them, I think we were always hiring out of desperation, right? Maybe they're just like think that we really need to ship super quickly, or maybe there's like client that we need to please. Whatever the reason is, when we're hiring out of desperation, we're cutting corners. And so, I think what we've eventually decided is that, all hiring decisions, it should either be a hell yes or a no. There shouldn't be a weak yes, or there shouldn't be a maybe. Like we hire when it's a hell yes, everything else is a no. And I think that's been a strong lesson for us that I think could be applicable to other founders too.
Good. I'm gonna tattoo that on my body. I'm
Yeah,
gonna remember that. Hiring
yeah,
has to be a hell yeah. You can't
yeah.
give me anything less. Okay, so thank you for that. So now it's been about 2 years since you guys pivoted. Something that I also love is how was it going about once you guys made that decision? How did you go about acquiring your first, second, third clients?
Clients, I see. The first client, it was a friend. I had a friend that had gone through YC, and he needed help with engineering, and so we offered to help. So that was the first client. And after that, it's word of mouth, where as long as you're doing an excellent job at a reasonable price point, there is no shortage of demand for an engineering team that can do that. And so, yeah, referrals, word of mouth, That's been our growth channel, uh, by far the largest growth channel so far.
Have you done any type of, traditional like outbound sales or like marketing or anything like that, or is it?
I post on LinkedIn daily, and I get connection requests and I get inbound requests that way. But in terms of sending cold emails, doing cold outbound calls, we haven't really invested in that yet. We might in the future, but not yet.
Is there a particular for me, I'm not a trained engineer. I mean, I live with two of them. Like I have a lot of them that are very close friends to me. But when we're talking about like a service agency, and you say that you guys do a high quality job of contract for engineering roles, like to me that just means like everything. Like it could mean so many things that you guys work on. So two questions: is there kind of a niche that you guys focus on, like only particular kinds of engineering uh, projects, and then also how, if yes, if no, how has that changed over the course of the last 2 years, based on your experiences and feedback from the market and things like
Um, I think initially we didn't really have a niche. We would just be everything for everyone. We were trying to boil the ocean, let's say, and that got us to a certain scale, but um, we weren't specialized. We were a commodity. Then we decided to focus on two things. One is that we're special. We're going to work specifically with startups, and so at that point, even if we had sales inbound from enterprises or large companies, we're focused, that our focus is startups. Um, and then also we've started focusing more on AI projects. So, project apps or features that require integration with LLMs. And that has been a really interesting journey because we started this company at year 2023. Again, that's when GPT-4 came out. And, that just completely changed how software engineering works, right? Because pre AI, pre LLM, whatever you built had a deterministic behavior. You build it once, you build unit tests, like that feature is done. Whereas now things are not deterministic, things are probabilistic. And how do build a piece of software around that and make it useful to users and create business value? That's just a completely new paradigm that we are still trying to figure out. But although we are all trying to figure it out, we take pride in the fact that we started doing this agency business right when GPT-4 was launched, and so everyone's started at the same time in 2023. We started at the same time, and we've had the privilege of learning how the top startups in the US are doing things, right? How the YC companies are doing this. One of our clients have raised some Andreessen Horowitz, like we're learning from how they're doing it. And so I think we've been in this like very privileged position where we know how the top startups are using LLMs to make their products better. And because we're based in Asia, we can execute cost effectively compared to other teams based in the United States. So I think that focus and specialization has really helped us grow at the pace that we have.
it's like you're reading my mind. That was a nice segue into into the next question that I had, which was about is it typically that you're coming in to build novel applications or integrations or things like this, or are you coming in and fixing shit that somebody's already uh, messed up?
What's interesting? Initially, when we started, it was more please build this from scratch. But increasingly, we are getting inbound from solo entrepreneurs that had vibe coded their first version of the app, and maybe they have like a few clients um, thanks to the vibe coded app. But now that they're entering real contracts, accepting real user data and real money, they want a real engineering team to come in and take a look. And so we're seeing a rapid increase of those kind of projects these days.
Very related to what you were saying, how is it that what are the most common ways, I guess, relative to what your experience has been around best practices with these tools and building these systems? and your experience with coming into how people have done it poorly and how you can fix it. What are the most common things that people don't do well, just because of a lack of understanding or lack of knowledge of best practice or something? What are the most common ways that people uh, misutilize or misintegrate AI or things like this?
Um, Talking specifically about vibe coded applications, we've seen two pitfalls. One is security, the other is performance. So as for security, very frequently people come to us with a vibe coded app where the database is fully public to the internet. And that is just not okay, right? Like that is not okay. So that's the first thing we look at. Like are permission, security, is this safe to continue using? Um, and then secondly is performance, right? Because when you're vibe coding an app, more often than not, the way that the AI writes code, although it's getting rapidly better for now, it might not write things in the most optimal manner, and that could cause more CPU usage or more memory usage. Um, and so maybe it works for a few users, but if you're trying to scale to 10, 100,000 users, there needs to be a big amount of rewrite. So those are the two things that that are common mistakes that we observe in the market.
Are there general best practices that you would or advice that you would give to people when they're building their own things to avoid those two things?
Yeah, I mean, as for security, I think especially for database, just
Well, sorry, I just wanted to say, I guess the first thing I could think of is just work with you guys directly. I mean, immediately, you know.
sure. Um, but like look up database security best practices, and it's not that difficult, right? Like just flip a few of the right switches, and you can get like 80% of the way there. Sure, there might be some security holes, but at least it won't be public to the public to the entire internet, right?
Okay.
And so, yeah, just look up database security best practices, and that should get you started.
Cool. So, so two questions I have for you that I really enjoy. I think it's the experience that you've had, and like I said, the pivots that you've made and the place that you come from is very interesting. So, like I said, it's two questions. The first one is at the moment with where you're trying to go and where you guys are at. What is the biggest hurdle that you would say you're facing, and how is it also an opportunity?
I think the hurdle is hiring. I'm sure a lot of founders would tell you this, but um, because the demand is there, right? We have a lot of customer interest. If we can hire faster, we can grow the business faster. And so just having a consistent stream of superstar talent that we are comfortable adding to the FirstMate roster. I think that we're doing it relatively quickly, but if we can do that faster, I think that would be an exponential growth situation for us. So that's the challenge. We're trying various different things, but if we can crack that, I think that's a huge opportunity for us.
Is there any uh, is there anything that you've learned from your prior experience that you're applying to this round of hiring that's helping you, or is it like a
Um,
different thing because you're in a different stage of the agency?
well, I think it's a different challenge because we're trying to grow faster now, right? Previously, from 0 people to where we are, like we could largely rely on my co-founder's network and him tapping into his, personal connections. But now that we're trying to grow faster, we need to unlock a new channel. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Great. Well, you're doing there's a lot going on, and you guys are growing very quickly. You guys are doing a lot of things, and I'm curious, uh, what inspires you to keep going?
I think what inspires me, my co-founder, and the entire team at FirstMate is just the innovation that's happening in the US right now. I know it's happening everywhere in the world, but particularly in America, the rate of innovation and creation is just unmatched. And it's such a privilege to be able to part of this innovation while being in Asia, thanks to the business model that we have, right? Like we're all based in Asia, close to our families, living in our home country. But vicariously, we're able to experience this AI revolution and how things are just getting rapidly better for the world. Um, I think that is just truly inspiring, and that's what I'm really excited about building FirstMate, and that's why I get out of my bed every morning.
Yeah, let's go. So if there's anyone else that was inspired to connect or follow along with your story, what's the best way to do that?
Sorry, what's the question?
What's the best way? If anyone else was inspired, follow along with your story or connect. What's the best way to do that?
LinkedIn. I post on LinkedIn every day. I post about the learnings that I get from the founders that we work with, how cool the product that we are, what kind of cool products we're building, just like, behind the scenes of, running a company. Those I post on LinkedIn, so please follow me or connect.
Great. Let's do it. Well, I've done both, so I think everyone else should as well.
Yes, yes,
Well, thank you so much here for your time, and I'm excited to stay in touch. See where you guys go in this trajectory, and check in a couple months, and see how it's going. See how you guys
perfect.
solve the hiring issue.
Yes, yes, wonderful. Thank you, Blake.
You got it.